years ago when there was a decision made to create two states. 80 years have passed, and the global majority is reiterating that there must be two states. One state was created a long time ago and has been recognized by the majority of states, and the second state has not been recognized by everyone, but they have to develop and they have the right to exist on the basis of international law. Somehow it is not taken into consideration. Why did we abstain?
Don't open it on your laptop.
The vote,
I just remembered you're not going to have your microphone.
When when the vote was taken, we were relying and we were taken into account on our vision, but at the same time, we were taken into account the position of the Palestine national autonomy. And actually, we took that into account. And of course, we were taken into account the position of stakeholder Arab Muslim countries who supported the US document. Yes, indeed, no one wants any bloodshed, and it could be provoked by someone or something. And given the summary of these factors, we made the appropriate decision. I'd like to highlight the following. The Russian representatives have been highlighting it at every level. The bloodshed could have been stopped a long time ago. It is a well-acknowledged fact. But what had to be done? Perhaps it could happen if Washington methodically, and I'd like to say that it was 6 times, I'm checking the data, but it was 6 times when Washington failed to exercise its veto right against draft resolutions that required to stop violence. 6 times they vetoed those resolutions. They exercised the veto right. What is important? The important thing is for the resolution not to become some sort of a shield or some sort of a smoke curtain to hide uncontrolled activities in Palestine, on Palestine land, so that it is not a final judgment to divest Palestinians of their right to self-determination. And of course, we need to make sure, please hear me, that it should be in line with genuine interests of Israel's citizens. We keep hearing from many countries and politicians who claim that they're acting for the benefit and in the interests of Israel citizens, but those decisions were made in the interests of some people in Israel, not the whole nation.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that question, Danny.
Judging by how those who examine me are nodding their heads, I feel that I have given an excellent answer to this question. Well, in fact, I'd like to say the following. If there is a human measurement, human aspect here, the things that human dimension. When I looked at what was done to Palestinians, this is something that is not that one cannot describe. A normal human being cannot say that this was an adequate thing to do. I don't know what the final death toll in Gaza. I don't know how many people are dead. 100,000. It was above 80, north of 80,000 or 90,000, practically 100,000 civilians, people who never took any arms in their hands. They were killed consciously, intentionally. I don't know whether it's easier to kill people by torturing them or not torturing them, but what was evident, their torture, their sufferings were long lasted, and there were certain forces who were deriving pleasure watching Palestinian citizens suffer. You know, this is some of a waterline demarcation, line of demarcation. When I saw and heard how people were showing videos of not only wounded Palestinians, but Palestinians torn into parts, and were laughing and were saying, well, that's normal and it serves them well. You know, this is the end. It is similar to the United Kingdom. It is something in their genetic program, some sort of a breakdown. It is like pedophilia. You know, I think that such things cannot be eradicated, but they have to be treated medically. And an answer to the question if someone is a normal human being or not reads as follows: if in order to feel for a wounded child, you need to know what his or her nationality is. You need to feel that pain automatically. If you are not someone who is not sick, if you are well educated, if you are a human being who refers to civilization as a concept, you have to feel for those people automatically. You have to feel for the child who is in this dire situation without checking what the religion of that child, what the ethnic group, which ethnic group he or she belongs to, who his parents are, which language the child speaks. That is the end, full stop. Once you need to clarify who is that child, what is his ethnic identity, is that child from this or that side, well, that's it. It means that we're not dealing with normal people. Maybe there will be other civilizations, or there were other civilizations, but in our civilization, the civilization we live in, it is a sign of absolute perversion, and it is the sign of a beast, if I may. I could not but make this clarification, because this story, this situation does not only have this dry legal aspect. You know, this situation has an aspect that relates to the fact that it's been 2 years when we were observing how people were dehumanized, when people were pointing fingers at a TV screen and they were enjoying videos of a pregnant woman dying in labor, and they could not see their newborns because, you know, because of what? Well, we are pressed for time. Maria's time is running short. I am with you. It's okay.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and introduce.
And we have a new guest.
So
can we have Clayton online? By the way, I can see that there is some discrimination of our colleagues, because we have given the floor to those who are online, but we have not given the floor to those who are sitting next to us.
Well,
maybe we'll give the floor to Clayton
we need to deal
Morris.
with the ones who are online first, because Clayton Morris, he used to work with Fox News. He's actually good friends with Tucker Carlson. Clayton and his wife, they do a podcast called Redacted. I think the last is 3 million subscribers, Clayton, or more than that. But like George, like Danny, Clayton is an important voice speaking out independently. Clayton, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Larry. Appreciate it. And thanks, Maria. Thank you to everyone. Reports this week show that acting president of Ukraine is trying to buy fighter jets at an unprecedented rate. He's planning to do that with money that he doesn't have, of course. This, of course, comes on the heels of corruption scandal that unfolded a few weeks ago in Ukraine, where we've had hundreds of millions of dollars stolen from the United States as well as the European Union.
Sorry, the sound is broken. Could you please repeat your question?
Yeah, if you repeat it, Clayton,
Sure.
the sound is breaking up a little bit.
Okay, yeah, my pleasure. New reports this week show that acting president of Ukraine, Zelensky, is trying to buy jets at an unprecedented rate. He doesn't have money that he doesn't have.
So he said that President
Sound is not working.
Sorry, it doesn't work.
No, you're not able to hear me?
Yeah, it was.
Are you able to hear me at all?
Try it again. Try it again, Clayton.
Right, you guys can hear me?
I can hear you now.
Okay, you can hear me now? Okay. Sorry about that. New reports show that acting President Zelensky, Ukraine is trying to buy jets and unprecedented rate. He's planning to do it with money.
I'll let him go ahead and finish speaking, and I'll translate it for you.
Okay. He's trying to buy all of these fighter jets, $140 billion euros that he's planning to buy. He's also just with Sweden, fighter jets there, 150 of these most advanced fighter jets from Sweden being sent to Ukraine.
The fighter jets that they own.
What is President Putin's response to this?
You know the story about the fighter jets.
Yeah.
You're talking about fighter jets that are worth 140 billion euros. I understand why the connectivity is being broken, because there is no need to discuss the fighter jets that were received by Zelensky. They will be destroyed. There's no reason to ask that question. Firstly, he's not going to receive those fighter jets, and secondly, they will be destroyed. Everything that Zelensky is going to get for terrorist acts against our country is subject to destruction, full stop. And of course, I'll be happy to listen to your question, but you need to understand that for our country, this is not a question any longer. But if you ask that question, I'll be happy to answer your detailed question as well.
I just wanted to get NATO again providing more advanced weapons into Ukraine. What is the Russian response to NATO for shipment of fighter jets? So they will be destroyed the moment they arrive in Ukraine?
Right. Yeah, they will be
Could you
destroyed.
please-
They will be destroyed once they arrive in Ukraine.
Yes, do you understand why it is being done?
Yes.
I don't know. These are French fighter jets, right? You understand that there were precedents when it was declared that weapons would be delivered to Zelensky, and then those supplies were not made, and those weapons surfaced in other regions of the world, not in Ukraine, or there was not a full set of equipment. Why? Because it is business. This is the way how they continue to be inside a huge international corruption scheme, corruption ring. There was another corruption balloon that actually was exposed, and now we understand what the Kiev regime is. The whole world was aghast, and when they found out how they store money in boxes, and when they learned about the amounts, but the amounts are significantly high, and the ring, the corruption machine ring, is much more extensive, much bigger compared to those close to Zelensky and the members of the Ukrainian government. It is a whole conglomerate. It is a colossal international mafia structure that has several components. There is a component associated with money laundering. There is a component related to terrorism. There is a component associated with illegal weapon trade in illegal black markets, and there are other components, etc., etc. Naturally, of course, those who are engaged in supplying weapons to the Kiev regime are aware that those weapons will be destroyed, but they know that that equipment will never reach its destination. But they need money. They know that this is a billion worth business deal, and this is why they are lobbying those deals. This is why they are pumping out money from taxpayer, because these are schemes. They understand that they can send weapons that are obsolete, or that will be something will be missing, because that weapon will be destroyed, and no one will no one will challenge the quality of that weapon, of that equipment, whether 5 tons were delivered or 4 tons. You may ask why I'm saying that. Because there are no mechanisms, no control mechanisms in place to monitor the deliveries. Neither the Ministry of Defense of France, nor Pentagon has that. I don't know. I don't know about the United States. That now it is not called Pentagon, but the Ministry of War, the Department of War, whatever. And neither the NATO, whatever the centers are called, there are no control bodies that are composed of auditors, representatives of public at large, or special services representatives to monitor and control those deliveries. Someone who would calculate and compare the original batch and the deliveries. But those mechanisms have to be in place, and they actually have to exist on both sides. And there are 2 accounting terms, debit and credit, and they have to coincide, they have to match. There needs a reconciliation. Mr. Smith, when he ships weapons from the UK to the Kiev regime, he has to call Mr. Johnson, who is at the receiving end representing the Kiev regime. And moreover, these commissions must be hybrid, mixed commissions, and these should be hybrid monitoring and auditing centers, because they have to control each other. And in fact, there is nothing in place, even something close to it. I remember a discussion that was ongoing in the United States, when everyone was asking the question, how can we calculate how much we have already shipped? But how can you calculate? There's no information about shipments. You know, when a man or a woman is selling apples at a marketplace, there is actually an inventory of goods, and then they sell those apples and report on how many apples have been sold. But no one is controlling that, because it is a mafia structure. And I applaud to Mr. Orban, the president of Hungary, who called a spade a spade. It is mafia. It is a genuine, true mafia that is engaged in illegal, unlawful. In actual fact, that is called criminal money laundering through equipment supplies and battlefield fights. The more weapons are provided, the less control will be exercised. The more people die, the fewer witnesses will be. It is not a very difficult business. I think no one in the UK, I'm talking about ordinary people, in the UK, in the United States, in France, Italy or Spain, no one would have this idea that despite this well-developed legal community, despite the system of checks and balances, and despite democracy that they believed to be in place, that everyone would be kept silent, that they would gag everyone. How do they gag people? They give money to accomplices, or they just threaten people, they put people behind bars, and that's it. Actually, everyone is gagged in the world, in the West. And those people who speak up, they are the targets. And actually, the sniper looks at them through the sniper rifle, and they understand that they may end up being dead. There were lots of examples. How many journalists in the West were actually denounced? How many people were made to keep silent, including those people who had to escape from the West, and then American weapons end up in Mexico, weapons that were supplied to Ukraine, and it is already a recorded fact. I suggest, if Maria has some time left, I suggest that we hand over to Pepe Escobar and Larry Jones. Well, you know that given that we are gradually turning to Pepe, I cannot but talk about drugs. You know, today, every day, we see and we watch news from the US about the anti-drug trafficking war. They're saying that narco trafficking should be addressed, and for this purpose, they are sending boats to Latin American countries, and they are destroying some other boats, and they're saying that these activities will be more extensive and more intensive. And 3 weeks ago, I published some materials where I said that perhaps, well, I fully understand that plantations, we can call them this way, and production of drugs at such scale are not located in the United States. They are definitely outside the United States, but dealers are based in the US, and trafficking logistics is located in the US. But most importantly, there are lobbyists, those who legalize drugs. They are based in the US. If not for lobbyists who have been lobbying for the recent decades and who demanded legalization of drugs, there would be no need to increase the temperature of this fight against narco trafficking, and there would not be so much freedom enjoyed by drug dealers. Whom would they sell their drugs? They can produce as much as they want, but who would who would buy their drugs? Actually, legalization of drugs would lead to an exponential growth in production. They will be shipped and supplied. If before drugs could be bought in downtown Manhattan, now drugs can be bought in the north of Manhattan or in Central Park, where you like. I arrived in the US in 2005, and I was shocked that when we went to Little Italy at crossroads under bridges, there were people, American citizens, who were peddling drugs, and this was very close to policemen, and they were actually unbuttoning their coats, and they offered the full range of drugs. And I was astonished. How come that a country that is fighting against international narco trafficking, international cartels, cannot conquer drug trafficking in New York, in one of its central, in the heart of the United States? At least I perceive New York as the heart of the United States, and they believe that it is completely permissible. And today I see that the situation is much worse. These are not only local policemen who are working hand in glove with drug dealers, but this is a situation that has actually spread across the entire country. And this is something that is legal. There are discussions that drugs could be sold openly, and it is normal to have TV discussions of drugs that can be taken in case of depression. And actually, it is normal to say that drugs, narcotic drugs, are better than medicine. And we should not start with Maduro, but we should start with those who are with the Democratic Party, liberal, ultra-liberals, who have been doing everything possible to legalize consumption of drugs inside the U.S. over the past decades. These are the people that have to be arrested. You do not need boats. You do not have fighter jets. You do not need a navy to do that. You just need to arrest several lobbyists who are lobbying legalization of drugs and actually put them to trial. Well, sorry, but the things you are talking about are very common sense. This relates to the question of this post-truth world, because this is something that is obvious. This is something known to people who were brought understanding the difference between good and evil, and that drugs are evil, not because people do not have enough money to buy drugs, but drugs change people as compared to cigarettes, tobacco, and other things. They can turn a human being into a beast, into an animal in one go. But when we see whole parties that are promoting the spread of drugs as a replacement therapy using international platforms, and I understand the United States in this respect, that they are actually standing on the brink of an abyss, and things that were happening in Philadelphia have been spread across the United States. These are ghettos, and people imprisoned themselves in those ghettos because politicians legalized drugs. You are depicting
I don't know if we have time, George. I know you had another question. Do you want to get in your last question, George?
No, actually, Danny Haifong asked it.
Oh, okay. We'll leave it to Danny. Okay. Hey, Clayton, you may want to kill your video feed. I think that will help your audio feed.
Okay. Let's see if we can
try that.
Do that. Let me see if I can do that. Okay, let's try that. I don't know if it helps at all.
No, it's still the feed's pretty lousy.
Maybe you can translate for me. I just wanted to ask about the economy, Larry. Which
okay.
Is the corrupt Western media has told us over the past few weeks that Russia is running out of oil and fuel.
Yes.
And that's it's a dire situation for the Russian economy.
Sure.
Can they speak to?
Yeah, I'll ask
Larry,
Maria
I understood the question.
Yeah, so
I can answer those questions. I can, indeed. You know, we have lots of challenges, various challenges, and they were provoked from the outside. We are coping with that. We have coped with the information war, and will be able to cope with terrorism that has been unfolded by the Kiev regime against the Russian energy infrastructure. We'll cope with that. We've managed to cope with an attempt to block Russian energy cooperation with other countries. I can assure you, we are grateful to those who have disillusioned us. We managed to cope. We have not only learned to survive, but we've learned to live, and we've learned how to fight that evil, and we'll keep fighting. I can ask the question, do you understand the root causes of all those problems that are emerging? The root cause is generated by Western governments who are financing the terrorist regime. They're giving money to that regime. You know, several years may pass, a few more years will pass, and similar to bin Laden, who was trained and sponsored by the West, and it was the West who supplied weapons to bin Laden and provided him with opportunities and was promoting him. The same will happen to the Zelensky regime, and it will be acknowledged that the West made a mistake and that the monster overgrew its creator and turned into absolute evil. I'd like to remind you that Hitler was sponsored from the outside. No Hitler would be able to seize power in Germany in 1930s if not for the 40 million support, big money and political assistance he was getting from the outside. And therefore, it is not our global problem. It is a local problem that we are going to deal with, and will deal with it successfully. There are various solutions and we'll resolve it. But I'd like to ask those who keep sponsoring Zelensky and his terrorist gang, how are you going to whitewash yourself? How can you pray to God to absolve your sins? How much are you going, for how long are you going to keep those people in a bloodbath? Look at Iraq, at Afghanistan, at Syria, Libya. Look at them. What do you think? If in Serbia, there was, if you rebuild a hotel that was bombed by NATO, and this will be the last destroyed building rebuilt, do you mean that Serbians would forget what the West had done to them? And, you know, there's no repentance. It will not be forgotten. Please tell everyone that these are problems that we'll deal with and cope with.
Could I just simply comment as far as the economic problems? I sort of wish that they had destroyed some refineries, because we would be in these traffic jams in Moscow, because the cars wouldn't be all over the road. So it's just, you know, the economy in Russia, it's an incredible place. And this desperation by the West to try to pretend that there are problems here when you have such, you know, an effective spokesperson like Maria.
Oh no, it is not because there's me, but this is because of Russian people. Our people are like that, and I'm not speaking on behalf, on my own behalf. And when I say something, it is not only in my capacity at the foreign ministry, but I talk to different people, not only to my friends and acquaintances. My Russian colleagues know that I spend 2 or 3, I talk to students and workers 2 or 3 times a week. I am invited by them. It is not only some sort of a speech or a briefing or a presentation. It is usually a Q&A, and it is usually and always a lively discussion. I am telling you the things that people told me. I am trying to broadcast what our people think and how they live, you know, and that's it. And our people still love other peoples, other nations, and they are ready to be friends and to cooperate, no matter how much pain the Western machine has inflicted on us. And during the Biden time in the United States, and how much pain NATO has inflicted on us. Our people, Russian people, have not rejected or turned down friendship or cooperation, but they know what they are ready to fight till the end. They want to preserve our true values without conquering the whole world, but to have our truth asserted and defended, so that we are not called humanoids, that we are genderless creatures, that we are slaves. And, you know, we don't need all that. And we know what it may lead to when you do not respond to dehumanization.
Can I finally ask a
Maybe
question?
you have a question.
No, seriously. I think we have to take this to the next level. If this is the last question, I think we have to really go hardcore. Yeah. In an auspicious vein, to quote our Chinese friends, we talked about a lot of horrors around the world, and horrors that were forced on Russia, as you know very well. You deal with it all the time. And especially this metaphysical void in Europe now, where they forgot the Renaissance, they forgot the Enlightenment, and they are plunging themselves in a suicide pit because of their leadership. But I want to talk about the auspicious possible future. And Russia and China are leading this future. Russia and China.
Just one small
Of course.
intervention. Do you know who has inspired European leaders? You have talked about that they have forgotten common sense and there is an existential void. Do you know who their leaders are? I think it is the American liberal democracy, without any doubt. It is sponsoring them. It made them this way, and it led them. And please do not release the responsibility from those citizens of the United States that have been imposing that on Western Europe. I can give you proof. The United States did not impose sanctions on Russia, and they went to Europe and Brussels, and they began forcing Europeans to impose sanctions in 2014. Who was it? It was Biden. When he was the VP, there are his quotes. These are not deepfakes or fakes. He was proud that he made European leaders to adopt a consolidated decision against
You're
Russia,
absolutely right.
knowing that there would be a retaliation, a response. And unfortunately, I'm sorry, but I have to say that the guilt and the problem of Western Europe is that it has lost its sovereignty. But I'm not sure that the victims of violence are worse than rapists.
No, it's a compound, Ms. Zakharova. The orders come from the empire, but you implement the orders much easier if you have vassal elites who lost their sovereignty, as you just said. Absolutely correct. But it's all about the collective, fragmented, dissolving West and the what we call the Atlanticist elites. But let's try the auspicious part, right? BRICS came of age last year. The SCO came of age this year. BRICS came of age in Kazan, thanks to the large part of the extraordinary amount of work that Russia did last year. I spent 6 months in Russia last year, to a large extent to follow the preparations for Kazan. And I could see how much all of you worked to make it an enormous success. Just like the Chinese in Tianjin this year, same thing. And there was the SCO, another SCO summit yesterday here, right? So these are the two top vectors of the future. Two multilateral organizations, Global South, Eurasia, Eurasia, Global South. It's all interlocked. So it's not really a question, but I am appealing not only to your vast diplomatic knowledge, because you've been to all these meetings, of course, but your gut instinct as well. Do you think that on the BRICS table and on the SCO table, all these major actors and partners, do they understand the extent of the SMO, and when Russia fulfills the targets, how this is going to turn the whole planet upside down? And the new protagonists are going to be them at the BRICS table and at the SCO table. Do you feel this consensus little by little being formed, a better understanding of Russia's background, reasons, why to proceed with the SMO this way, and of course, the way to the inevitable victory? These people are smart. They know that Russia already won the war. It's a matter of when the war will finish. How do you compare exactly your professional trajectory looking at the BRICS and the SCO from the inside and your instincts? What are they telling you?
I'm afraid that this is going to be the shortest response to someone who has been waiting for my response for such a long time. As long as Washington is going to boss around and or make orders to BRICS and Shanghai Organization member states, telling them what they have to buy and what they do not have to buy, we should not be thinking about any philosophical concepts, because everything has been done for us. Russia provides opportunities for equal cooperation, and they get an alternative of being bossed around. And this world order based on rules is something that is a world order based on shouts, cries, violence, blackmailings and threats, based on endless violence and nipping people's will in the bud. And this is the philosophy of the future. Everyone chooses himself the kind of world he wants to live in. We want to live in peace, and we propose the format of communication that is being fostered inside BRICS and the Shanghai Organization, when all member states are equal, not only by law, but in their moral standards and their morality and culture-wise. When they have equal opportunities, of course, they will never be the same. We are all different. Humans are different, but there is a notion of equality before the law, of being equal, and that no one has the right to humiliate other people. And this is the world that we are proposing, and we are showing that it is possible. It is not a utopia. It will be a utopia to claim that all people will be the same, and we have to abandon our desires and national interests. This is a utopia. This is not what we are suggesting. We are proposing equality. We are proposing a world of opportunities. We are proposing a dialogue. We are proposing a preservation of international law, a dialogue, and multiple voices. You know, a chorus, when it is a choir, I have never, perhaps artificial intelligence will give us that a chance, such a chance, but we've never had a chorus or a choir with the same voices. We hear different voices in a choir. This is a fantastic effect of singing in chorus, and this is why we are saying that the future is with that chorus. When we'll sing in chorus, when there will be solo areas, and there will be a big team of participants, and how beautiful it will be. It will be challenging, it will be uneasy, but it will give a real positive and constructive result. Instead of one loudspeaker who will tell everyone, like in Orwell's book, who should go left, right, who should eat, who should sit, who should sit and keep silent. The Western world is trying to prove what is true for us. They are crying that you are not allowed to buy Russian crude, you are not allowed to buy Russian gas, you are not allowed to conduct trade with Russia. Everyone understands that this is a stance that will be taken not only with respect to Russia. We have the largest territory. We are a major country based on many indicators, and the West has this animal feeling that if they bring the strongest down, then the rest would have no opportunity to resist, you know. And I think that our resistance on the one hand, and our resistance by force, and on the other hand, our constructive proposals to cooperate based on normality rather than new normality, all that creates an effect, which means that the global majority is not selecting between the two evils, but the global majority begins to understand, based on actual examples, that you can make a conscious choice, and you can choose peace, cooperation, and interaction. The word friendship does not have anything bad. It is not an obsolete word. It is not a word from the previous year collection, but these are the words of the future, you know?
Thank you very much.
It seems to me that it seems to me that Danny had his second question. He has only asked one question.
Sure, Danny, do you want to go ahead? Do you have another question?
Oh, well, yes. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to ask another question. Right now, the mainstream media is saying in the United States that Russia is invading NATO airspace with drones, seeking expansion in Europe, and committing acts of sabotage against NATO countries like Poland. Perhaps you can give an American audience an idea of the actual role that Russia plays in the world and what interests guide it.
Yes, of course. I suggest that your audience should think about one thing. Sabotage. Is sabotage good or bad? If it is good, then it should not be any reason to worry. If it is bad, then they should ask their governments and their regimes why they've been sponsoring sabotage against our country. Once they decide whether it is good or bad, we'll be able to continue the discussion. We believe that it is bad. We believe that extremist activities, terrorist acts are inadmissible. And having gained experience in North Caucasus, we believe that international terrorism is absolute evil, and everyone has to fight against it. We believe it, and we demonstrate it by example. I believe that your audience is quite young. Your audience may be diverse, but your audience are likely to be 30, 35, or under 40, and they don't know what the Russian Northern Caucasus international terrorism problem was. I can remind you that there was a time when the UK and a number of European states were sponsoring insurgents like Dudaev, Basayev. They were terrorists like Zakharov. Zakharov still lives in the United Kingdom, and he is the best guest for the British establishment. And they were committing terrorist acts and sabotage acts. Do you know what kind of terrorist acts they committed? For example, you take a large apartment house which is 15 stories high or 10 stories high, and terrorists, insurgents who were sponsored by the West, they brought explosives, hexagen, and they blew up those houses, and dozens and hundreds of people died. And there was another act of sabotage, and when in Budyonnovsk, it is a Russian city in the same region in the Caucasus, terrorists sponsored by the West, similar to how they sponsor Zelensky. There was a hospital, a maternity hospital was taken hostage. What is a childbirth? It is a miracle. It is a complicated process that requires everything: supply of oxygen, supply of water, electricity and light and heating for the baby to be born healthy. Those terrorists took that maternity hospital hostage. Those terrorists had West-made weapons bought and provided bought from the West and provided by the West, and they began dictating their will to the government. Nobody in the West, whether in Down Street, in Brussels or Washington, has made a statement that act was actually inadmissible. Everyone was demanding that Russia made concessions to terrorists. This was the time when the West had to decide whether sabotage or terrorist acts were good or bad. You just need to decide once and for good. If your countries and the citizens of your countries choose leadership who sign off treaties on counter-terrorism, then they have to comply. By the way, the words international terrorism are no longer used in the international information space. No one is discussing international terrorism. In the year of 2010, there was no other topic. Everyone was discussing international terrorism. We kept hearing about international terrorists. But now this topic is no longer on the radar screen. I don't know what those international United Nations officials are doing. I have not heard this word mentioned by US observers, but this topic is still relevant. Why is it blocked by Western mass media? Because they feel uncomfortable given that Zelensky is an international terrorist who is targeting civilian infrastructure. The definition of terrorism, though there is not a universally accepted definition, but all definitions of international terrorism say that these are violent acts against civilians and to intimidate them. And we have just, we were discussing those strikes against the Russian energy system. It is civilian infrastructure. How about Nord Streams? It was a civilian infrastructure that was destroyed by Ukrainians. Did anyone say anything? I have not heard anything from Brussels, Washington, Ottawa, Washington, or any other states. Did anyone say that it was bad to blow up a pipeline, a gas pipeline? How many times were power grids mined by people in the name and on behalf of the Kiev regime? How many times were terrorist strikes against the Crimea Bridge? Was it was there anyone who tried to rebuke Zelensky? I will not shake your hand if you keep doing it. Did someone eat Berlin, Norway, Sweden, I don't know, Finland? Did anyone summon diplomats when it was declared by the Western countries that they suspect Ukrainians of that sabotage act? And I'd like to remind you how Russian diplomats were sent back home, though they were not accused of any particular crime. You need to define the standard, or you have to admit that there are no standards. Why should you ask these questions when no one can give an answer to the question, what is your attitude to acts of sabotage? First of all, you need to give a definition. Our definition is that international terrorism is absolute evil. Sabotage is evil. You need to also define it on your part. And by the way, it is a message to the civil society. The civil society has to demand a response to this question. What are we sponsoring? What is our money spent on? If you are targeting oil pumps, if you are targeting gas stations, then we should think about it. We need to decide whether it's good or bad. If this money is spent to strike the Crimean bridge, you need to decide whether it's good or bad. If civilian infrastructure is targeted, you need to decide whether it's good or bad. But this is the essence of the post-truth world. I have to apologize that we're going to finish our discussion like this on this note, but in 1945 nuclear weapons were used for the first time, and it was the United States government against militarist Japan. There were atomic bombs used against two cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and there was no reason to do that because the Second World War was about to come to an end, and it was clear that it was absolutely obvious, but it was some kind of retribution for Pearl Harbor and for all the sufferings of American people inflicted by Japanese militarists. And it was a horrific act, a terrible act. We are ashamed. You know, as we sometimes say, they did it, but we are ashamed. What is happening? All that is erased from the minds of Americans and people in the world. First of all, they started erasing the idea that it was a retribution for Pearl Harbor. Then they erased the fact that it was a decision made by the U.S. government. The U.S. government has never apologized. They did not even say we are sorry. They did not express any compassion. What do we see? Events held in Japan. At those events, Japanese government said that those nuclear bombs were falling from the skies. It looks like aliens were actually bombing them, or they were just fell from the sky. And you know what double standards lead to. And the most horrible, terrible, and barbaric thing is that at those ceremonies, Japanese government officials draw parallels with referring to Russia. They fail to mention that it was an act committed by the United States government, but due to some unknown fact, they are saying that Russia should not threaten the world with nuclear weapons. Russia has never used nuclear weapons and is a good faith party to all international documents. This has a direct relation to your question. There should be no double standards. You should not erase the memory of history, and you have to define basic concepts. Once we define that a table is a table, that a chair is a chair, a microphone is a microphone, a TV set is a TV set, internet is internet, then we can reach an agreement. But if we manipulate standards, and now we are manipulating concepts, concepts are being manipulated, not by us. I understand what it will lead to. When Hitler was called the father of European democracy, almost the father of European democracy, it led to the Second World War, to genocide, to Holocaust, etc. I also have a question. May I go?
Well, I was just going to say, yesterday's international terrorist is today's honored guest at the White House.
As long as our colleagues are here with us, we'll say goodbye to Maria. It is an important statement. Let me say, in this country, I briefly mentioned it today, when we were fighting against international terrorism in the North Caucasus, on the one hand, we are fighters against terrorism, and at the same time we said that those who voluntarily reject any using arms, and if they acknowledged the laws of our state, if they comply with human norms and everything that was a part of our policy, we could have a dialogue with them. And this is what happened. And we are not ashamed of that. Ahmad Kadyrov is someone who was fighting on the other side, but he was strong enough to lead a large number of people to stop that bloodshed that was imposed on us, and to actually release our our country from international terrorism. And his son is continuing this noble cause. And we sincerely believe that Ahmad Kadyrov is a hero of our country, though we know what we began with. We know him as a hero. We esteem him as a hero, and will treat him this way all the time. And in this connection, I'd like to clarify it. It is crucial, and I believe that it was a great achievement of our President Vladimir Putin and of our people who managed to find a way out from this situation. And it was a very noble way out, most noble. And I always gave this example as an effective recipe for those who face terrorist challenges domestically. Those terrorists may have foreign roots or international roots or domestic roots. This was an example that Russia demonstrated to the whole world. And this is something that has to be part of the world history book. And as thank you very much, Maria, for these colleagues. Please stay online, because we'll have another guest who is General Abti Aludinov, who leads the Ahmad Battalion, and it was the result of what Maria Zakharova has talked about. It was not only a peaceful settlement, but it was he is defending our motherland. Maria, thank you very much. Many thanks for your great